can get started. All righty. So welcome to the Board of County Commissioners County Commission meeting on regular County Commission meeting on June 13th, 2023. And so we will call this meeting to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Commissioner Baxter?
Here.
Commissioner Bernard?
Here.
Commissioner Marino?
Here.
Vice Mayor Sachs? Here. Mayor Weiss?
Here.
Commissioner Woodward?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this morning, we're going to have our invocation and pledge by Commissioner Marino. All who are able to, please rise.
Thank you and good morning. Whoops, it went away. Hold on a second. Please bow your heads with me and let us pray silently together, each of us according to our own beliefs. Let us offer thanks for the blessings of fellowship around us. Let us be a source of hope for those in need. Let the feelings of love, kindness, and a well-directed yet gentle spirit always be reflected in our actions. And as my mom always says, let us leave the world a better place than you found it. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Carry that for you.
Oh, that's a nice one. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much, Commissioner Marino. All right. Do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions to the agenda?
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board. Yes. On page 9, item 3B2, we have a revised motion and title from the clerk. On page 18, 3H2, a revised summary. Page 43, 3DD1 is a revised summary. On page 49, 5C1 has been deleted for further staff review. We'll bring that back as soon as possible. On page 49 is 5C2, which is a revised summary. On page 54, we have an add-on item, which was an emergency and trying to move this forward, and that is item 5E4. That concludes addition, deletions, and substitutions.
Thank you very much. All right. With that, would somebody like to make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? We have a motion by Commissioner Marino, a second by the Vice Mayor. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, all opposed, that motion carries 7-0. All right. Moving on to item number 3, our consent agenda. Would any commissioner like to pull any item from the consent agenda? Commissioner Bernard, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to pull an item, but I do want to make a comment once I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, and then I'll make a comment.
Very good. We have a motion from Commissioner Bernard on the consent agenda. We have a second by the Vice Mayor. Any discussion? You make your comment now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 29, item 3I5, I just want to thank staff, the Jonathan Brown's department, Housing and Economic Sustainability Department, for working with the City of Revere Beach on the Brooks Center, and also working with the City of Revere Beach to creating the Brooks Center Playground, which also will incorporate STEM themes such as aerospace, energy, and robotics. And so just really want to thank staff for working on that, and also working with the city to work on the urban farm. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you for those comments. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all in favor, all opposed, that motion carries 7-0. Excellent. Moving on to our regular agenda, begins on page 47. 45? Oh, public hearing, sorry about that. I missed public hearings. All right, first, we need a motion to receive and file proof of publication. We have a motion by Commissioner Marino, a second by the Vice Mayor. All in favor, all opposed. That motion carries 7-0. Now, moving on to item 4A1, Housing and Economic Development. We have a motion by Commissioner Marino. We have a second by the Vice Mayor. Is there any further discussion? Does anyone require a presentation on this item? Not seeing anybody. So with that, all in favor, all opposed, that motion carries 7-0. Thank you. All right, moving on now to item 4B1, Palm Tran.
Mr. Mayor, if no one has a comment, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 4B1A, B, and C.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bernard to approve item 4B1, A, B, and C. We have a second from the Vice Mayor. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing Commissioner Marino, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. So right now, all we are doing is submitting an application saying we are going to use these $56 million in funds. We're not giving them a program of how we're expending it, correct?
Correct. So actually, we're ratifying the submission of that agreement that we had asked the mayor to do previously as they were having conversations about the debt ceiling in Washington. There was some concern that these particular funds may be swept of unobligated transit funds, but these funds were protected ultimately under that agreement. And so what we've submitted to them is just merely for revenue replacement, and we'll come back to the board to have further conversations about the use of these particular funds.
Okay, I'm happy with it being revenue replacement. I'm not so sure about the other options you put on the table, so I just want to put that out there.
Sure.
All right, thank you. That's all of my comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, all opposed, that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now moving on to our regular agenda, and on page 47, and that is item 5A1. And we are recognizing, this is receive and file a presentation on property values and the property appraisers. Our illustrious and favorite property appraiser, Dorothy Jacks, is with us this morning. Thank you, Ms. Jacks, for joining us.
Well, thank you so much. It's so nice to see you, Chair, Vice Chair, and the Commissioners. I feel like I was just here.
Deja vu.
You're seeing way too much of me this year, way too much of me. Anyway, thank you. It's my pleasure, as always, this time of year to give you a very short presentation about values and what we're seeing happening in the real property and tangible personal property markets in Palm Beach County. Just for those of you who this is your first time hearing this, I like to just give you an update of where we are with the tax roll. As you know, you're about to enter your budgeting process, and I think you have your first meeting this afternoon, if I'm correct. And I know you'll be moving forward with setting your millage and so forth. We work very much in tandem with the county and all the other taxing authorities to gather that data together toward the end of producing a proposed tax notice in late August, which my office mails out to all 650,000 property owners in Palm Beach County. And then, of course, after that, there's a series of further budget discussions, and then eventually ending up with the bill being mailed in November. All of this is very driven by a state process that happens in every county. It's known as the 100-day cycle, and it's just this sort of back and forth that we have between our office and you, and all the other taxing authorities, of course, as well. But anyway, today I'd like to begin just by going over some high-level numbers, and then we'll work down through some others, and then I'd be more than happy to answer some questions at the end. So Palm Beach County for 2023 has come in at $481 billion. To give you some context, we were at $387 billion on that line just a year ago, so almost $100 billion added over the last year. I suspect next year I'll be back here talking to you about $500 billion. which is pretty amazing when you think about that here we are, little old Palm Beach County. We're just moving along. Taxable value, I'll go over the difference between those two numbers, but 288, last year's taxable value was 251 billion. The new construction figure at 4.3 billion is actually very close to the 2022 number. I'm going to talk a little bit more about new construction in a minute. And we came in for the estimates at 13.36%. I suspect by July 1st, when we provide you with your preliminary number, that'll be the number you use for setting your millage. It will actually be a little higher than that, probably near 13.5. The parcel count has gone up about 2,500 more than 2022. That number, it seems like, well, why doesn't it go up more? Well, it's really because that's really just growth from platting property. So anytime a subdivision goes from being one big parcel to, say, 200 small parcels, that's what makes up the change in that number. And also condominium. Anytime a new building is built, let's say that's 200 units, that gets added to that number. A parcel is anything that can be taxed individually. So it could be anything from a mall to a condo. It's just a unit that can be taxed. And the tangible personal property count actually went down slightly in count. That's really businesses, and of course there was a lot of change during COVID with businesses openings, closings, and so forth and so on. So that number hasn't substantially changed in a number of years. The value of that has, and I am going to talk about that in just a moment. So the market and taxable value graph, I like to show this just to show how this last couple of years has really impacted this chart. We were slow and steady, well, I wouldn't say slow, we were steady for a number of years back to 2015, and then of course we started to take off just in 2022 and 23. The difference between those two lines, the blue line being market value and the yellow line being taxable, are the exemptions and caps. So the two of those added together create the distinction between what is market, what we set value at, and what is actually in the end taxed. The number of people who are filing for homestead is not increasing in any significant way. It's been steady for the last few years. However, people who have homestead are reaping more benefit of the 3% cap as values increase, hence the number going up. So new construction. This is just 5 years worth of new construction figures. I think that we sometimes think about new construction in the context of big ticket projects, like, for instance, this year we added the new FP&L campus on PGA Boulevard, a $100 million structure that went online this year. But really, these numbers are showing us the value increases or the new construction happening in residential, condo, multifamily, and townhouse. Over 80% of this value comes just from those residential categories. I think that reflects a lot about who is paying the taxes. We think again about the big ticket taxpayers, and yes, there are some big ones in Palm Beach County, but it really is mom and pop who are paying new taxes, remembering that all this value is being taxed for the first time in any given year. So that $4.3 billion in new value is just that, new value. It's not the land, it's not existing structure, it is new value that has never been taxed before. So also remember that for all those folks who are paying tax on new value for the first time, 70% of the county is within a city boundary. So in addition to paying your millage rate, they're paying city millage rates if they're in that 70%. Of course, schools and so forth, solid waste, water management, every other taxing authority we have, again, for the first time on that new value. 75% of our market value, our big number, is residential. It's also interesting that that's where all of that is coming from. We are a very residential county, and that is where our growth is truly coming from, albeit we see those other big projects. So let's talk a little bit. I have a few notes about the 2023 tax roll, just of interest. First of all, the caps, 94% of homesteaded properties now have a 3% cap. So what that means is only 6% are paying at market value. You know, their market has not risen above their capped value yet, usually because they're brand new. And next year they'll have some cap savings. But anybody who is homesteaded has the ability to have the 3% cap. It doesn't mean that everybody will, but now because the markets are so strong, most people do have a 3% cap. The concern there, of course, is what happens in a downturn. So the law says that in a downturn, while the market value may start to slide back downward, the capped value, that one that's been kept artificially low, must continue to climb until the two numbers meet. So even during the Great Recession, you saw that absolutely happen, where even though the market was declining, taxes were continuing to increase, because until the two numbers meet, we are required to continue to raise that 3% a year, keep climbing until you have those two numbers meet. So I just point that out because it's that's the day when I come to you and I won't be smiling. It'll be difficult times, but hopefully we won't be there anytime too soon. But I think even more interesting, 70% of non-homesteaded properties, so non-homesteaded properties have a 10% cap. It's a much higher amount. 70% of them now have some form of a savings going on because the 10 cap has kicked in on those properties. That's also significant and unusual, certainly unusual prior to 2 years ago. Also, tangible personal property. You know, we don't talk about tangible a whole lot, but it's business equipment. So any company that has land and building is also paying tax on their furniture, fixtures, and equipment. I'd like to use the analogy of Publix. Publix has both land and building, which they're paying tax on. They also pay tax on their cash registers, their shelving, their refrigeration equipment, and this covers all businesses in Palm Beach County. Now, small businesses are exempt because there is a $25,000 exemption, kind of like a homestead, but for business property. So if you're a hairdresser, you're probably not paying this tax. But certainly anybody bigger than owning $25,000 worth of equipment is paying tax. Tangible value has seen a 12.4% increase. Again, there are some significant new projects, including the new Finfrock plant out in Belglade, which came online this year, which included quite a bit of tangible value. Again, think equipment, think big machinery, that sort of thing. Also, the other part was just that more of a post-COVID back to normal, the ability for companies to get inventory in. Supply chain disruption occurred with everybody, whether it was me trying to buy a sofa or whether it was a company trying to buy a huge piece of equipment. That has really started to sort of clean itself up. And companies are also, now with COVID at an end, are getting back to business and buying more replacement equipment that they might have needed during those 3 years. So I think that's probably also driving tangible value and inflation. I mean, that's just another thing that's driving the tangible value. They're certainly paying more for that equipment now than they might have, say, 3 to 5 years ago. So, and another interesting thing which I thought I'd mention is the cranes. So the cranes that are building these massive buildings all around us, all of them easily worth over $1 million each, are also tangible property, also taxed to the owners of those cranes. So when you see those cranes, just remember they're as difficult as they are paying a tax. And I thought I'd also mention just about the number of deeds transactions. We watch this number very closely. Of course, we watch the market very closely, but for us, it's also about not just how much value is increasing, but how many transactions are happening. It helps us in a number of ways if there's a good, healthy number of transactions, because it allows us for a bigger pool of market data. We are looking at a lot of data, and we're necessarily throwing out sort of the highest and the lowest and trying to get a good average in the middle. So it helps us when we have when we have a good count of transactions. We had a very sharp drop in that during the summer of 2022. And it worried us somewhat. We hoped that it would stop the decline, and it did. Although the number of deeds that are turning over didn't go way back up, it certainly has leveled off. So both prices plus the number of transactions has now leveled off. And again, that just is a good thing for my work and what we're doing in our office. And I think also for our market, it's kind of calmed the market down somewhat. And just in closing, and like I mentioned, I'm more than happy to answer some questions, but some final thoughts. We have submitted our budget to you with a small increase this year. We're continuing to invest our resources in technology. This year, we begin a project to move our condominium towers into the 3D world. We are going to build the condominiums actually in our GIS system so that you will be able to render them in a 3D format. I hope I'll be able to come and show this to you next year. There are over 1,000 condo buildings over 4 stories in Palm Beach County. There's literally 5,000 or 6,000 that are less, but we are going to start with the buildings that are over 4 stories. We'll be able to use that data for assessment purposes, giving us a really good visual rendering of things like view sheds and shadows and whether an apartment is more desirable because of what it can see, and it will show us those values in color, just the way you would on a flat 2D piece of land in a neighborhood. We also plan, obviously, as we've always done, to share that with County GIS, who will be able to put it to other good uses, I'm sure. But this is a big new project for us and an exciting time that we're able to do this sort of work here in our office. We will build it ourselves with some assistance from some outside just consultants to help us. But I have such a great young staff now who are very excited about doing this sort of thing. So it's a good time to get going on it. We have reduced our staff again by 2 this year. I think I am now at a reduction of over 30 during my term in office. We've done all of that through technology, just really improving the way we do processes and being able to do it with fewer people. We are, and again, it's exciting because the folks that we're hiring now have a simple expectation of that sort of technology, and we're able to give it to them through our resources. One final thought, and then I'll, again, like I said, be happy to answer some questions. I wanted to say to you, as you were all gathered here, and I am here in front of you, that if you might choose at some point to move our operation here in the Government Center further west, I would be more than happy to go along with you. We are certainly, and I've spoken to the administrator a number of times about the struggles our staff have just getting here in the morning with the trains and the traffic and the construction. And certainly our taxpayers are struggling with that as well. We get fewer and fewer people who come here to this main office simply because parking is a task now. So I just throw that out there that if you decided to move further west, we would be happy to come along. So thank you very much, and happy to answer some questions.
Thank you very much. I don't want to call you Dorothy, properly appraiser Jax. Thank you very much. Let's see, Commissioner Marino and then Commissioner Baxter.
I've known her so long, I'm calling her Dorothy. We both didn't have gray hair back then. But on the condo sales, that is fabulous. And it'll be layering, so you can actually see the sales that have occurred. You know, that's wonderful, because when we're searching and it's a condo sale, you don't see that layering, and you can't really pick out what was it sold in 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatnot. So that's wonderful. I appreciate that. And we have, I do have to say that your office in Gardens is run very well and very efficient, and right next to my office. So thank you for being there.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized. And then Commissioner Woodward.
I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation. It's amazing, and I'm looking forward to seeing and using the technology that you are going to now institute.
Thank you, Commissioner Baxter. Commissioner Woodward, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I had a couple of questions. One, we are at 94% homestead properties, you said, that are at the cap, and 70% non-homestead. How much of an increase is that from previous, more recent years?
I can get that number for you. I'm sorry I don't know it. I should know it. It's a great question. But I know it's definitely an increase. Each year, of course, as values increase, the caps just grow and grow and grow and grow. But I can get you the number for last year and the year before, too.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And my second question, if I may, you have a link on your website that you told me about that people can put their address in, or if they're looking to buy a property, to give them all of the breakdowns. Couple of questions on that. When someone uses it for, if they're looking to buy a new property, does it allow them to put in the sale price that they're probably going to be paying, so it will adjust for all of the millage?
Yes, in fact, it leaves the space for the price blank, so that you can put in what you're going to pay, what you think it might value at, say 15% lower than that. You know, our values are always behind the clock, meaning we're valuing as of January 1st. So you buy in November, it's probably going to be higher than that number. So it allows flexibility on the tax calculator for putting that number in.
Okay, because the reason this is important, we had discussions, and I think you get a lot of phone calls from people who, after their first full year of purchase, get shocked by the new tax bill because the previous owner had bought years before, and with the cap, we're paying much lower, and they get a big surprise on the tax bill. One other question about that, does it also break down all of the different millage rates so people can see what's city, county, school board, all the taxing districts?
Absolutely. It gives you a total number because, of course, that's what most people want. But right next to it, you can get a tax detail, which breaks down every taxing authority, including the non-ad valorem assessments that may exist on that property. So yeah, the data is in the sort of the next box over to the tax estimator box. Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, just because I'm asking all these questions, I'm putting it in my newsletter that's coming out this
Wonderful.
month with the link so people can go and look at that.
Wonderful.
I know, I don't know how much authority we have to do something like this, but I think that we should encourage all realtors or anyone who's selling property, especially people coming out of state who don't understand how property taxes work here. I'm getting phone calls, and people, it's a disclosure that I think should be made so that they, see the previous year's tax bill, and that's not at all what they're going to be paying when they buy in today's dollars. So just something to think about.
Thank you. And I will also add that any kind of publicity of this tax calculator we more than appreciate, because we do constantly talk about it, but often it's after the fact when people have the shock, not, when they're in the process of purchasing. One good thing that's happening is one of my peers in Pinellas, the Pinellas property appraiser, and I, we're working within my association on seeing if we can have online realty sites such as Zillow or Realtor.com have a link within the listings to the local property appraiser's tax estimator in Florida. We introduced this year in the legislature. It didn't get a lot of traction, probably because it needs just a little more work with the realtors, who are not opposed to the concept, but have some concerns about how it will work so that it doesn't become difficult for them. But we would like it where even in the MLS electronic listings, they would have a link, because each property appraiser has the same function. It's not always in the exact same place, but a tax estimator. It's a really good process, and if we can get it in a more global way out there to everybody who uses an online site, because I know a lot of people, that's where they go when they first start shopping, then it will be a big plus. So I'll be bringing that back to our delegation again this year. Hopefully we can move it this year.
Thank you very much. And we have Commissioner Marino, who used to be a realtor. Maybe you can address this.
30-year realtor, 30-year broker. There actually is a disclosure that is during the process when you're filling out all your paperwork. There is a disclosure that will say upon purchase, your house may be reappraised and you may be subject to higher taxes. So people are actually given the notice that once their house reassesses, they are going to be taxed higher. As for the formula and what that amount might be, that's a different story. But it's kind of like, when you read your HOA docs, sometimes you don't read them, but it's there. But I do want to say that there is a disclosure that informs people that their taxes will be increased upon the revaluation of their homes. So, yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Barnett, then Commissioner Bernard.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Dorothy, Ms. Appraiser Jacks. You mentioned earlier about your staff, how your office has reduced its staff by about 2 this year and 30 overall since you took over as property appraiser. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit as to the reasons for that. I think you mentioned technology has made things a little bit more streamlined. Love to hear how government operates more effectively and streamlined. Can you talk a little bit about how it's made the property appraiser's office more effective in the work it does for the people?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you a couple of examples. First of all, it's important to know that we did all this through attrition. We have so many people retiring. I'm sure you do as well. So many people retiring, and as they've retired, we really question, do we have the right number of people doing whatever that function is, and could we do it with less? So a lot of it is just a cultural thing. But for instance, field evaluation. So we're required by law to visit every property at least once every 5 years. But in about 8 or 9 years ago, the legislature approved a process where we could use aerial imagery instead and use a process called change detection, where you would put a building, pick a photo of a building 1 year over the prior year, and then find the errors in the 2 outlines. And so a computer is basically doing work that a human might have had to do in the past. It has reduced the number of people we have to have physically out in the field to just those folks that have to go and look at new builds. So it's important that when a permit is filed, we go and inspect the property for the permit, and we still do that in person, measure it, and a new structure as well. So that was one big thing. Another is moving as much as we can with online filing of homestead exemptions. Homestead exemptions used to be a very in-person process. Now we take approximately 55 to 60% of our annual applications online. What that allows us to do is, instead of having a line out the door in Delray Beach where most people come in, many people file in the middle of the night, and then the next day we can move the work around our office to the locations where the staff aren't necessarily as busy. The North End used to be that office, not anymore. But certainly our Belglade and our Midwest office, we can move the work around to where the staff are. So it's just that while we love seeing people, it takes a lot of time to work with a human every day, as opposed to being able to electronically review their records and quickly process a homestead application. So it sped up the process as well, which is nice. We also worked harder with our deeds processing group. Those are the ladies who, as the deeds come over from the clerk of courts nightly, they can quickly work with 2 screens. There's no paper. Quickly work with 2 screens and transfer data by allowing us to move some data quickly. So much of the savings has come through just looking at technology and how can it make literally boots on the ground work get done faster and maybe more efficiently. And quite honestly, with the new people that we're hiring, they don't even think twice about working on these sort of systems. It's how they learned in school, and now how they'd like to work in our office.
I really appreciate hearing that, and thanks for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bernard, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Jacks, you had opened the door regarding, if there was a conversation regarding potentially, moving from this area to somewhere else, that you'd be interested in having that conversation. I know that we have a budget for over $70-something million to renovate this building. And how would your staff feel about potentially if we were going to have that discussion to,
Well, I suspect my staff, much like yours, live mostly west of 95, even if we just talk about I-95. So the in and out every day is the difficult part of the commute. Also, of course, that's where our county is growing. It's growing to the west. So my staff have all, I find they're very stressed because in the morning they're in such a rush to try to get here on time, and the traffic or the trains or the two trains slow them down. So they would be very comfortable with somewhere that might be west of 95, near an artery road. And I don't want to, this is completely in your hands, but I just wanted to mention it since we were all here, that, you know, I think there is a benefit to our staff, but there's also a benefit to the taxpayers, just simply that they're able to get to our building.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, you're recognized.
It's always a pleasure to have you here, Ms. Jacks. Good to see you again. The discussion has been really fruitful today because we've always also looked at ways that we can cut staff, not cut staff, but let's say make the work more efficient with the use of technology. Would also mean that you could probably use, shall we say, a smaller office in terms of just its size for the use of what you do. It could also mean that, I mean, how many offices does your office have within this large county? How
So
many?
we have 5 offices, all supported by you. Our whole building, if you will, is under the county's facilities.
Does the state give any of that? Does the
No,
state?
no, we don't collect any fees for anything, unlike the collector. We don't create fees, we sell a small amount of mapping data, but otherwise very little. So we're under you, and we are in your North County complex, obviously. We're in Delray, next to the sheriff's substation in West Delray, with plans to move to the new building that's being worked on in East Delray, near the old building, as it were,
Right.
Congress and Atlantic. And then, of course, Belglade, which is also a small operation for us, but we're in the government building there. And then in the Midwestern office, which is in the building we used to share with the tax collector, but the clerk is there as well. And the sheriff's substation is there. We're right next to the library in Royal Palm Beach, and Okeechobee and Royal Palm Beach Boulevard, and then of course here. So that's our 5 offices.
This is the largest, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And our our commercial department, the entire commercial department, tangible department, our mapping section, our IT section, and a big chunk of our residential section are all down here. In our branches are a public-facing exemptions service area and our appraisers who work in those areas. So if you go into the North County building and you're from Tequesta, you can actually talk to the appraiser who works on your
There.
property. We
Excellent.
wanted it to be that way so that it was more helpful when you came in, that somebody was there.
Where would you think, and this, you may not be able to answer this right now, but where do you think of which offices that you have spread throughout the county, and I can see that they're pretty much geographically located, would be the busiest in terms of forward-facing the public?
The busiest office, no question by far, is our Atlantic office. Our
Atlantic,
Delray.
that's East Delray.
West Delray office.
West Delray.
It is Atlantic, it's Jog and Atlantic at the moment. So we are just west of Jog, between Jog and the Turnpike on the north side of Atlantic. And by far, twice the foot traffic of any other office.
Is that office? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. All right. This is just curiosity on my part, but since I have you here, and I'd like to ask you. So when you talked about the cranes, are they taxed based on where they are or where they're owned?
Where they're owned.
So it's likely then that many of the cranes that are here may not come from this area, they may come in from somewhere else, and,
Well, I think a lot of them are probably from the county.
okay. But they could be from somewhere else,
They could
and so
be.
they wouldn't be in your tax rolls, they would be in the county in which they're, where the business is located that owns them. Okay. And then the other one was on boat docks. So because I saw, we had a case last week, and I was looking at the property, one of the properties that this particular property owner owned, and it was a boat dock, and it had a taxable value to it. So if there are individual boat docks that are like attached to condominiums and other buildings, then they'd also be taxable.
Absolutely, and it all will depend on how it's owned. So if you have a condominium that is deeded with a boat dock, then that boat dock will be part of that condominium. But if it's a condominium where they have a shared dock, then it'll probably be shared in the condominium. It just depends. Boat docks are tricky, and there's also a lot about, do they have any upland, do they have any finger piers, then you get into tangible, because if they can be removed, and yeah. But it's important to note that in a marina situation, Florida provides for a classified value called a working waterfront value. So if your marina has any public element, it isn't just, it means that I could pull my boat up to that marina. They aren't completely private. Then they are valued in use, which means they're valued as a marina, not as any potential development ability that there might exist on that property, as there is with every other property, which is valued as highest and best use. So it's interesting with marinas.
Interesting. All right. Well, thank you very much. Always wonderful to hear from you. Your presentations are always very well done, and so thank you, and I guess we'll be hearing from you in a few more months.
Yes, thank you very much for having me today. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Thanks for being here. All right, so we need a motion to receive and file. We have a motion from Commissioner Barnett, a second by Commissioner Woodward. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, all opposed, that motion carries 7-0. Okay, moving on. We are now on item 5B1, and this is Housing and Economic Development.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 5B1A through F.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bernard to approve item 5B1, A, B, C, D, E, and F. We have a second by the Vice Mayor. Are those cards on this item? Okay. Any further discussion on this item? Not seeing any. All in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are now on to item 5. No, that's 5B1. We should be on 5B2 now. Oh, 5C1. That's been, 5C2 would be the next item, because we deleted 5C1.
Okay.
This is a community services item for an increase for some hunger expansion relief. Anyone need a presentation on this? Anyone need, I not see anybody need a presentation. Would somebody like to make a motion? We have a motion by Commissioner Marino to approve item 5C2. Do we have a second? We have a second from Commissioner Barnett. Thank you. All right, on discussion, we have Commissioner Sachs, and then we'll go to Commissioner Marino and then Commissioner Bernard.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to thank all of you and the staff for the great work you do. I can't even begin to describe how many phone calls we get every day with people needing help. And I have one full-time staffer just taking care of that. And you know what? We always get very, very good background and consideration from your office. Thank you for all you do. I'd like to just shine a little light on the needs of veterans with the Veterans Advisory Board. I think that it is a need that really cries out for help. And I love the idea of a Veterans Advisory Board. My recommendation, if I can at this time, to put on that board, Ms. Baker.
I think we're on a different item.
That one we deleted. We're going to gather a little more data, and we're going to bring that back to the board.
Got it.
5C1 was deleted. We're going to
Excellent.
bring that back to the board.
Well, I will just record what I just said, and we'll say it again. But for the thank yous, I thank you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Marino, you're recognized, and Commissioner Bernard.
Thank you. Actually, what I'd like to do is recognize some folks in the audience that are here to support this. Marty, how are you? Lori, Seth, George, thank you very much for being here. I'm sorry? Jamie. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Jamie. And it's a wonderful partnership, and I know many of us have been to the facility. And just thank you for all you do, and keep it up.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bernard, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to ask a question to Seth, if you don't mind. I know that we've, let me see, I know myself and staff, we've been working on the commercial kitchen, and, we've done tours around the county to see how we can work with, to create a commercial kitchen. Can you kind of elaborate on Blend PBC, and what do you see in the future in terms of working with Blend PBC in the commercial kitchen, please?
Sure. So first of all, thank you very much, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, staff, Ms. Baker, on this project, and for working with your staff up front here. Is really will be a great benefit to Palm Beach County for decades to come. But one thing that I would say is that this project is really going to feed and create some jobs, and also have an entrepreneurial center for culinary folks to learn about becoming chefs and creating their own businesses. So this is something that we see very future oriented, will be very helpful for our residents across our county. And the food bank is extremely committed to this project, obviously, and they have a sustainability plan within a few years that it will be self-funded and be able to produce more food and work with the farmers in the glades as well to recoup more food and have food frozen and be available much more throughout the year. So that's kind of what we anticipate the next couple of decades, is really to have this game-changing entity here in Palm Beach County.
Thank you very much. And as Commissioner Marino mentioned, she thanked everyone that's being here, and we're very glad that this item is brought forward and look forward to supporting it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Baker, did you have a comment?
Just wanted to highlight one element that we're very proud of as far as the commercial kitchen is concerned, and that is our small businesses right now that are actually catering out of their homes will be able to partner with the food bank for a nominal fee to actually go in and use that commercial kitchen and be able to store. We had the pleasure of going down south with Marty, along with Lori, et cetera, and actually seeing how the ARC in Fort Lauderdale works. And ours is going to be very similar. We're going to be a little larger. And so we're very, very excited about our businesses being able to utilize the facility as well.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Barnett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to chime in as well, and thank you, folks from the food bank, especially for the sizable financial commitment that you're putting up yourselves for this kitchen and the work that's going to be done at the facility. I know most of the commissioners have also had a chance to tour your facility, and being in District 3, my district, I'm grateful to you for the work that you do to help so many people that are in terrible need that I've had a chance to witness for myself. Just this past week, we were at a couple of food drives that have benefited from the resources that you provide to them, and I'm really also happy for, I think you mentioned to me on my tour during the Commissioner Spotlight that was recorded a few weeks ago, the kitchen will be used to make meals for folks at the Mid-County Services Center, the Senior Center on Lake Worth Road. I'm really excited to hear about that. I want to also thank you again for everything you're doing, and I'm proud to support this project.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I think all the good words have been said, so I won't repeat them, but thank you all for being here and all the great work you do for the residents of Palm Beach County. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, all opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Okay, thank you. We're moving on. We are now on to item 5D1, County Attorney. This is an employment contract for our new auditor. Morning, Mr. Zamora. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Mayor Weiss. Morning, Commissioners. Staff recommends a motion to approve the employment contract for the internal auditor, David Zamora, for the position of County Internal Auditor for a term of 2 years, effective July 1st, 2023.
All right. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
That was fast. Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say at the beginning of this process, and thank you for meeting with me yesterday, I'm not a huge fan that this didn't go wider. I would have liked us to be able to see, a few different people. But I have to say, after speaking with Mr. Zamora, am I saying that correctly? It was a pleasure getting to know him, getting to meet him, and understanding how his entire the process and how he perceives it and his vision for the future. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time to meet, and I really appreciated it. So thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Would somebody like to make a motion? We have a motion by the Vice Mayor to approve item 5D1, which is the contract for, excuse me, our internal auditor. We have a second from Commissioner Barnett. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, all opposed. That motion carries 7-0. Mr. Zamora, would you like to make any comments?
Sure, yes, thank you. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. Okay. Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I'm excited to be the new County Internal Auditor. I want to say thank you for your support and also acknowledge that we have a great team of professional auditors in the Office of Internal Audit, and we want to continue to provide quality, useful, relevant recommendations for improvement for Palm Beach County. We want to remain an important part of helping the county run as efficiently and effective as we can. So I appreciate your support. Looking forward to the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Congratulations. And we look forward to seeing the reports coming out of our internal audit department. All right. They're wonderful to read. All right. Moving on. We are on item 5E1. This is purchasing a parcel of land. Commissioner Marino, you're recognized.
Thank you. Can we do, to our attorney, this is a question, can we do 5E1, 2, and 3 together, since these are all purchases within Palomar? Or do we have to do them individually? Do them individually?
I think you should do them individually.
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve 5E1A and B for the purchase of 7.9 acres of vacant land from due to our willing sellers program in Palomar.
Thank you. We have a motion by the Vice Mayor. We have a second by Commissioner Bernard. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none. All in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 6-0. We'll note that Commissioner Barnett has stepped off the dais.
So I
Okay.
will continue making motions. 5, I would like to make a motion to approve the purchase and sale agreement and the memorandum of agreement, 5E, 2A, and B.
We have a motion by the Vice Mayor on item 5E, 2A, and B. We have a second by Commissioner Baxter. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 7-0.
And I'll also make a motion to approve 5E, 3A, and B, also in Palmar.
We have a motion from Commissioner Marino to approve item 5E, 3A, and B. We have a second from Commissioner Baxter. Any further discussion on this item?
Actually, may I?
We have a discussion item from,
Not a discussion, I just wanted to say that 5E1, which is the larger parcel of all of these, the almost 8-acre parcel, which is along Beeline Highway, is a great buy for the county because it really does help with water storage, water flow, connection, and preservation. So thank you for, keeping our letters out there, letting people know that we're available. And, it is all about willing sellers, and we are happy to purchase from them. So thank you for your efforts.
all right. So we have a motion and a second on item 5E, 3A, and B. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor, all opposed. That motion carries 7-0. Okay. And I believe that is, we have one other item now. We have an add-on item. And that is going to be on item 5E4. You have a motion by Commissioner Bernard and a second by the Vice Mayor. Would anyone, any discussion on this item? We have 2 cards? Oh, nope, they don't want to speak. They've decided they're good.
Well, I got 2 non-speaking in support. Apologize, 2 non-speaking in support. And Andrew?
You don't have to come up.
You don't have to if you don't want to, but
I just wanted to say
I do have a
I
speaking card for you.
appreciate staff's help on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
And that would be all.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Bernard.
Just to reiterate what Andrew just mentioned, just want to thank ISME staff, Howard, Purvey, the whole department for working on this. I know this is not an easy lift, but thank you for your hard work.
All right. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, I know we had voted a while ago to let Commissioner Bernard take the lead on this and just ask, were there any updates regarding this item?
Yes. ISME, if you can kind of weigh in.
More than happy to. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. We have continued to work, and I believe we have made progress, without doubts. It's a complex item, as we have shared before. We were able to meet with FTA, which was one of our more critical items, I will argue. FTA confirmed that updated appraisals are required. Those have been ordered. We actually expect to have them this week. We recently, last week, reached agreement with the purchaser on the temporary construction easement. That has not been brought to the board yet, will be in the future, but at least now we have agreement on the material terms of the document, so it's ready eventually for approval. We received a request from the purchaser to waive until after closing the other 2 easements that were pending, so we have those in the back burner. We have agreed that we need to coordinate a 3-party meeting with the city, and that's in the works. A date is yet to be determined so that we can talk about what we call the Exhibit D improvements, meaning the offsite improvements that we briefed this board about back in March. We have reached as well an agreement and a solution, and that topic is basically closed, on the matter of monitoring for environmental conditions while work is taking place and we remain at the current ITC location. So that one has reached a successful agreement. I'm going to call it that way. We have also moved forward with the temporary parking lot that will be required by the purchaser in order to move our operations. Just yesterday, they submitted the permit applications that they needed us to sign as the owner, and we processed the same on the same day. So that hopefully is moving forward with them to submit the same to the city. I believe today before noon is what they had shared with us. So we have a few open tasks, but we continue to work on them. Closing has yet to be determined because before we're able to set a date on closing, the conditions precedent must be completed. But we are, in my opinion, making progress.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just add.
Yes, please.
It's me, I have no idea what FTA stand for. I'm just kidding, but if you can just let us know so in that way the commission would know, please.
Federal Transit Administration, and my apologies for that, we get so used to using acronyms. The property that is going to be disposed by the county has some federal interest in it, and if you remember back in March, we shared that one of our concerns was that the appraisals were really, really old, right? There's an authorization from the FTA, concurrence from the FTA for the county to sell the property, but those appraisals were 8-9 years old, so we felt updated appraisals were needed. We had a meeting with the agency confirmed, and we moved forward and ordered the same. So at this point, we're just waiting for those documents to come in. Once they are received, we will move to review, and hopefully that will position us closer to closing.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much. I want to thank you, Isami, and your staff. And I want to thank Commissioner Bernard for your leadership and being our voice and helping shepherd this project through that I think we all believe will be beneficial to this area. All right, seeing no other lights lit, we are on item, let me get back to my 5, where is it? Oh, this is 5E4. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor, all opposed, that motion carries 7-0. Okay, we are now on to item 6. That's commission district appointments. And we will start with Commissioner Barnett and work our way across the dais.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no appointments today.
Thank you. Commissioner Woodward.
None at this time.
Commissioner Marino.
None at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bernard.
None, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Baxter.
None.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
None at this time.
Thank you, and I don't have any either. Okay, moving on to item 7, staff comments. Madam Administrator.
No comments.
Thank you. County Attorney. Okay. Moving on to item number 8, and that is commission comments. And we will start on my right over with Commissioner Baxter today. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. We have been receiving an abundance of emails out of the Summer Chase community off of Lake Worth Road. And what they've been asking for, I don't think they can necessarily obtain, but I'd like to see what processes might exist. For one, they would like a light, and there's literally a traffic light right next to the entrance to their community. But what you do notice when you look at an aerial view of the Summer Chase is there are 3 dead ends or more that lead to a road called Blanchette. With a willing seller at the end of any one of those, I think we could get enough of a right-of-way to put in that connection to Blanchette to give them the access in a 55-plus community to a road with a light, because we know how difficult it is to get traffic lights. So I would like to, unless anyone else would object, I would like to give staff direction to take a look at that process and bring us back some information and see if it's possible to help them, whether it's a traffic study, which I doubt would show that we need a traffic light there, or some sort of access to Blanchette so they could easily access to that road where there is a traffic light.
All right. Anybody have any objection? Don't see any. Let's go ahead and we'll give staff direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Commissioner Baxter. Commissioner Bernard, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am happy to announce that I am getting older. And since I am getting older, I've brought in my 9th intern since I've been a county commissioner. So I want to recognize Emberline St. Hilaire, who's here in the audience, if you can stand up. She is a student that's attending the University of Chicago. And so she is from Palm Beach County, and so we're happy to have her this summer. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on, Commissioner Marino, you're recognized.
Tomorrow's Flag Day. Happy Flag Day. Other than that, I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Woodward.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would just like to say you had staff training a few weeks back, or maybe last month, and my staff has benefited tremendously from it. I'm told that they're using some of the new skills almost daily. So I would just maybe ask if we could continue down that road with some, I know the permitting, zoning, even looking up addresses, all of that's been helpful to not have to contact staff who's already doing other stuff, that they can look this up on their own. So anything, any other items like that in the future with technology would be very beneficial, and we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Barnett, you're recognized.
No comments at this time. Thank you.
All right. Vice Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I'd like to ask for verbal approval on behalf of our mayor for 2 off-site proclamations on June 13th. The first is proclaiming June 15th as Dump the Pump Day. I'd be careful saying that. I have to make sure you pronounce those words correctly. Dump the Pump Day. And if there's no objections, I'm sure this will pass with verbal approval. As
We
well.
have oh, you want to go ahead and do them both? It's,
Yes, I'd like to do them both if I could. On behalf of the good man sitting to my left, the mayor, I would like to declare June 2023 as Palm Beach County Pride Month. All right, that's good.
Thank you. We have a motion by the Vice Mayor, a second by Commissioner Bernard. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much.
That's okay. I have one other
Yes, please.
statement. The traffic is a big issue. And everybody wants an intersection light. Everybody, at least in my district. And I have a district that is growing exponentially residential. And folks are upset about traffic. And we heard today from our property appraiser about issues of traffic. So for this reason, I'm putting together our good engineers from the county. And I want to thank our chief engineer, David Ricks, and all his staff, as well as engineers from FDOT and some experts that we're getting from FAU. We're putting together a workshop on traffic on the 21st of June at the South County Civic Center. You all are welcome to come. Everyone is welcome to speak. We will have, it's a round table, it's a discussion, it's a workshop on how we can work with the areas that we have for traffic safety more than anything else, and of course, the future of transportation, which will be very, very interesting. So thank you. The 21st from 1 to 3, and I'll make sure that everybody gets that in their offices and their staff will know as well. So thank you for our county engineers, David Ricks, and everybody else who has participated, Kelly Smallridge and Valerie Nielsen from TPA, everybody. Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Well, a couple of things. We have, there are a couple of requests. So we'll be presenting the Dump the Pump proclamation outside of Chambers immediately following this meeting. Then we will also be going downstairs. There is a bus, Haitian American Heritage Month bus that's been wrapped. So PalmTran has asked that we come down and join them for a photo opportunity. So if I can ask my colleagues to please join us down there. I think there was a theme in today's discussion. I had lots of people talking about technology, which is music to my ears, and I'm sure to many people. But really not only from an efficiency perspective and being able to provide better service to our folks, but also as a recruiting tool that young people are interested in using technology. That's what they're learning from, and it helps in recruiting and retaining our staff, and it's exciting, and all these new developments are really exciting. So I'm just encouraging our staff to be as thoughtful and open-minded at looking at technology and exploring the opportunities, because I believe it will make for a better local government. So. With that, is there anything for the good of the order? I am not seeing anything. We will be back, so we will adjourn, but we will be back at 4 p.m. For our budget meeting. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.